Hello, and welcome back to Diecast Graveyard. My name is Paul. A little over a month ago, I put out a challenge to the Diecast community to build a race car. Now, Memorial Day weekend is like race car day in the United States. I mean, you have the Monaco Grand Prix, you have the Indianapolis 500, and you also have the Coca-Cola World 600 in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I put out a challenge to build any race car. It didn't matter what type it was, as long as it was 1/64th scale. Well, this is going to be my entry, this Hot Wheels Gremlin Modified. Follow along as I modify this car the way I think it should be. Hopefully you have your adult beverage. So I've already drilled out the post in this car. Now there's only one post. It's held on by a clip in the back. Now this car was in pretty rough shape, but I've got some parts I want to trade out. The base here is pretty nasty, but I've got another base that I think I'm going to use. We'll switch out the wheels. We'll make them look really good. The engine definitely is not in good shape, so I'm going to change that out anyways because I got something that looks a little bit more realistic. So we'll put some new exhaust pipes and a new engine block in there. Here's the interior. That's not too bad, but I do have one that's brand new, so we're going to switch that out. And here's the body. Now, where I grew up in upstate New York, the modifieds didn't have these wings on top of the car. I mean, I don't know what Mattel was thinking when they came up with these, but we're going to take that wing off, and we're going to make it look a little bit nicer. So the first thing I'm going to do here is cut off this wing. Just use some snips here and take them off. Actually, it's snapped off pretty good. But we're going to grind down the top of that thing and make it level with the car. Well, this actually isn't working too good, but we'll get it ground off. Let's go ahead and file it down. Now, it won't take too long, but we'll get that filed all down and make it nice and smooth with the top. Now, like I said, I grew up in upstate New York, up north of Syracuse, in a small town called Oswego. And I spent almost all of my summertime at a local racetrack called the Oswego Speedway, which is home of the Super Modifieds. Now, they also raced these modified sportsman cars, and there were many legends such as Richie Evans, etc. And these cars were super, super fast. All right, we got the wing all filed down there. There's a few holes there in the top, or a few little divots. We'll fill those in with paint, and those will be good. I've already stripped down the car, and here it is sitting on the frame. Now again, I'm going to switch out this frame. I've got one that's better, that's already got some real riders on it. This engine is broken apart. I'm going to take the engine out of this street rod in the background, and again, I'm going to put some real riders on there, and they'll look really good. I also want to clip off the bumper because the cars that I saw when I was a kid didn't have these flanges on the ends of the bumpers. I'm going to make up my own paint job, and I'm thinking it's going to look really nice. So here I'm taking out the motor off this car, and I'm going to file it down. Now I took the top off because it won't fit on there with the carburetors, and ground down where the hole is so the screw can go through there, or the post can go through there, and that'll look pretty decent. I wound up cutting off that piece in the very front and these bars on the side. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell to be alerted to any future videos that come out. There we go. Again, I'm going to cut off that piece in the very front too, so the body will fit a little bit lower. But I like how that engine is sitting in there, and those exhaust pipes look a lot more realistic than those big fatties that were on the other one there. So I'm glad we're getting away from those. This is going to look pretty decent. I'm very happy with this so far. This is looking pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and move on.
Someone is being exhumed.
Okay, I cut that front piece off there. I cut the flanges on the front bumper down. We're going to put a panel from the front of the hood to the front bumper of the car, and that'll give it more of an aerodynamic look. Plus, it'll look more like the cars that were racing at Oswego Speedway back in the late 70s, early 80s. We're going to turn those red line Real Riders inside out also, so we don't have that red stripe. I cut myself a panel out of polystyrene. And get a hold of the darn thing. And it's going to fit in there, something similar to that. Now you get the general idea. Once I get it glued in place and smoothed out, it'll look pretty good. But that's the look I'm going for right there. Nice. Let's move on. I've got that glued in place. That looks really good. I'm very happy with the way this is going so far. Now the wheels in the back are a little bit big and I could have replaced them, but I said, you know, they're already there and they don't look really too bad. So I'm going to leave them there, but again, I'm going to switch the tire around. Now I'm going to measure up the car for my graphics. I just recently got a decal set up that I can print my own white toner decals. So I'm going to experiment a little bit here. Try and take as exact measurements as you can of the car, so when you go ahead and feed it into your computer, you'll know approximately how big you need to make it. I found this number on the internet and I really liked the way it looked. And I'm going to paint the car like a fluorescent green anyway. And then I want to put some side panels on there. Now I found these side panels. I'm going to have to trim them up quite a bit. But those I think are going to look pretty decent also. Let's move on. Alright. Now I want to paint the car with some surface primer. And I'm using this Tamiya primer. It's white. And it works extremely well. Now one thing I have learned. You don't want to use this primer if you're using Createx paints or any water-based paints, because it will bead the paint. Yeah, it'll work eventually, but you really don't want to do that. So don't use it with the water-based paints. Alright, we got the car in my new spray booth, and we're going to paint it the bright green from the Redline shop. Now, I get almost all my paints from the Redline shop when it comes to Spectre Flame paints and the urethane paints. Now, I get my water-based paints like my Createx and my Chroma Air paint from spraygunner.com. But right now, I'm going to use this beautiful paint from the Redline shop. Let's get the mist coats in there. We'll let that dry and come back and hit it with some saturation coats. Man, I love that paint from the Redline shop. Get your underside, get all the little hard to reach areas like up in the fender wells, etc. And like I said, after we let this set, we're going to hit it with some saturation coats and then let the paint job sit overnight so it'll harden. This is looking really sweet. I love it. Let's go ahead and move on.
Meanwhile, back in the graveyard.
I printed up my graphics and I trimmed them down. I'm fitting them into place on the car. Now, I didn't cut out the wheel well because if you cut out the wheel well ahead of time, it tends to weaken the decal and could possibly rip it. Now, I'll go back in after it dries and I'll strip it down, or not strip it down, but I'll trim it out with a razor knife. Then I can go ahead and clear coat it. But got the little skulls on the side and everything, and the number that I had found, that looks really cool. Alright, let's do the decal on the roof. And again, I printed these with my new decal printer, and it's a white toner printer. Now, this is just like one from Fat Guy Productions. Paul has one of the same printers that I do. And I'll tell you, there's a heck of a learning curve. You've got to have some type of graphics knowledge in order to do stuff like this. So it's not like you can buy one of these things and just immediately start pumping out decals, okay? Which is not my intention. My intention is, like, if I've got something really complex or something of a small quantity, then I can go ahead and do them. But if I'm going to have a large quantity made or something like that, I'm going to use someone with more experience than me. And who I'm referring to is Vince over at Second Chance Redlines, because Vince does some absolutely beautiful work, and his work is incredible. I love his work, and I'm very happy to be using his services too. But let me go ahead and tell you something right now. Vince at Second Chance Redlines is now an official sponsor of Diecast Graveyard. So if you need some really cool decals, hit up Vince at Second Chance Redlines and he'll be able to take care of you. He also does have the occasional car parts for your Redline cars, so check out secondchanceredlines.com. Alright, here we go. These are all dried up, and then I'm going to go ahead and get a knife in the wheel well and get these trimmed up. Now here's all the parts. Here's the base with the engine glued into place. That looks excellent. With the real riders, and I got them flipped around. Here's the brand new roll cage assembly. That's going to look great. And then here's the body, all painted up, and all the decals and the wrap ready to go. Let's put everything together, and let's have our reveal. Man, what a fun build day. And here's what we started with. A Hot Wheels Gremlin Modified. Now, like I said, on the East Coast, back in the mid to late 70s and early 80s, these cars didn't have these big wings on there. Now, if anybody can let me know where they used to race cars that had wings like this on top, these modifieds, let me know. I'm curious, because I've never seen any for real. But we took the car apart, we sized up exactly what we needed, we did some cutting, some adjusting, we changed out the motor, we changed out the base and some real rider tires, we did a phenomenal paint job, and we also come up with some killer decals. This was a lot of fun. Now, there's a lot of folks that are building cars for this build-off, so I'm hoping you'll get to see them. And here's what we got to. Look at this beautiful modified Sportsman. What a fantastic car. And this was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. Now, like I said, there's a lot of guys that are building cars, guys and girls. So check out all the builders for the Racecar Build-Off, and in a couple of days, I'll get a recap video posted, and this will also lead to all the people that are participating in the Racecar Build-Off. And you should please go visit their pages, and if you really like the work, go ahead and subscribe. Like my friends, Go Bears Diecast Workshop. She does some phenomenal work. Jamie over at Devil's Details Diecast. He does some great work. There's so many. John Sellers, Jim Silva. Fantastic folks. Southpaw Diecast. He's entered this build. I know he's going to do well too. Brett at Double B's Customs. Check these guys out. Check out the folks at spraygunner.com. They've got a complete line of airbrushes for all your airbrush needs. They've got a really cool line of compressors to include their wonderful no-name compressors. They've got airbrush paints from Createx, which is an incredibly great brand. They've got their in-house brand called Chroma Air. I love these paints. Airbrush kits from Grex and No Name and many other manufacturers. Spend less, get more at spraygunner.com. Like I said, there'll be a recap video in a few days, so please stay tuned. I'm releasing approximately 3 builds this weekend. We got the 4 Horsemen build, we've got this build here, and there's also a 3 Blind Mice build, so please check those out. My name is Paul with Diecast Graveyard. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Cheers.